Tonight on Newshour, a seismic shift in international diplomacy. France has broken from traditional allies by announcing it will formally recognise the State of Palestine this September at the United Nations. Now, the timing is strategic and the implications are vast. This marks a turning point not only for French foreign policy, but for Europe's posture on the Middle East. With over 140 nations already extending recognition, France's entry into that bloc carries diplomatic weight and symbolic force. But the move has ignited fierce debate across global capitals, with French politics and on the streets of Jerusalem and Ramallah. Supporters see it as long overdue justice for the Palestinian people, but detractors warn it may reward extremism or unravel fragile alliances. Israel has responded with anger. Palestinian leaders have responded with hope. And world powers are now recalibrating their next steps. Well, tonight we explore whether France's recognition is a genuine step toward peace or just another declaration in a long-stalled process. First, a closer look at what was said, who welcomed it, and who did not.
French President Emmanuel Macron announced on Thursday that France will officially recognize the State of Palestine during the upcoming 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September. The urgent need today is to end the war in Gaza and to rescue the civilian population, Macron said on his official X account. He emphasized the necessity for an immediate ceasefire, the release of all hostages, and the delivery of massive humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. Macron underscored the broader vision behind France's recognition of Palestine, saying, "We must build the State of Palestine, ensure its viability, and ensure that by accepting its demilitarisation and fully recognising Israel, it contributes to the security of all in the Middle East." The Palestinian Authority welcomed Macron's announcement. Palestinian Vice President Hussein al-Sheikh on Thursday said the decision reflects France's commitment to international law and its support for the Palestinian people's rights to self-determination and the establishment of our independent state. In response, Hamas released a statement on Thursday night, saying Macron's announcement to recognize Palestinian statehood was a positive step in the right direction toward achieving justice for our oppressed Palestinian people. Meanwhile, Israel responded to the announcement sharply. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemned Macron's decision in a post on X, calling it, "Such a move rewards terror." Many Israeli officials called for the government to take countermeasures immediately.
Okay, let's cross now live to our correspondent Ross Cullen in Paris for more on the political mood in the French capital and how this move is being received domestically. Ross, good to see you. How is Macron's decision then playing out within France, particularly among political parties and in the national press?
Well, Guy, lots of varied reaction here in France on Friday to the decision by Emmanuel Macron to announce that France will formally recognise the State of Palestine in September. We've heard from the French Foreign Minister Jean-Noël Barrot. He has said that Hamas is a terrorist organisation that has never been in favour of the two-state solution. He has said that France has chosen the path of peace, not the path of war. Also support for Emmanuel Macron's decision, in fact, from the hard-left opposition in Parliament. France unbowed that party, saying that they salute the decision, it is the correct decision, but in fact they said it had come around as a result of their popular mobilisation because it's been a long-standing policy of the party. Now, on the right in Parliament, the hard-right National Rally Party, their President Jordan Bardella said the announcement by Emmanuel Macron gives institutional legitimacy to Hamas, and perhaps the most well-known figurehead of that party, Marine Le Pen, she has said that the French leader took this decision for personal political motives. So certainly a varied reaction here in France. Now, Emmanuel Macron on Friday having a call with the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. We do not expect, however, Britain or Germany to follow France for the moment. In fact, Germany has said that they are ruling out, at least in the short term, recognising the State of Palestine. But dozens of British Labour MPs have been pushing their Prime Minister to formally recognise Palestine, and he has said the British government reserves the right to do so at a time that he chooses is best for the Palestinian people. Now, Emmanuel Macron also has an important summit next week, co-hosting France and Saudi Arabia via the United Nations to discuss rebuilding Gaza and also building a Palestinian state. And then that decision of formal recognition of the State of Palestine will be taken by France in September.
Okay, thank you, Ross. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is Middle East and Africa analyst Abdenoor Toumi, who is in Paris. Mr. Toumi, thank you very much indeed for joining us. France, then, the most influential Western nation to make this move. How do you think this might shift the balance of power in the Palestinians' diplomatic campaign?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on the program. Actually, yes, it is a shift in France's Near East policy. Even though France has a tradition that has called for the two-state solution since 1967 under the then President Charles de Gaulle, and then followed by the socialist President Mitterrand when he made his speech before the Israeli MPs in the Knesset, and later on President Jacques Chirac. So, but what is new here is President Macron, I think he was touched about the carnage that is taking place and the humanitarian disaster as a result of the systemic famine in Gaza Strip. So I think he said no to the fait accompli and to the impunity. So it is a time to demystify the narrative of the Israelis, that this narrative has been echoing to some extent positively in the media and among the politicians, across the West, and particularly here in France, and notably among the far-right parties. So what is, again, the impact? Of course, it is symbolic, and we all know how symbolism is important in politics, so that in geopolitics. But is moving this idea of making an end to this tragedy and these inhuman atrocities that the Palestinians have been going through for decades. Now the question, it's not about the recognition of the Palestinian state. Yes, it is good, and France is a strong leader in Western sphere, and it is. I mean, by the way, it is if this going to happen, it will be the first Western country sitting in the UN Security Council, and also the first country of the G7 members. So now the question: does the other side will recognize the Palestinian state? So according to all elements and developments, for the last 3 decades since the Oslo Accords, in which was just this accord was just buried 2 days ago by the vote of the Knesset, who are not only calling to not recognize the Palestinian state. Actually, this was another vote that took place last fall. This time they are calling for the government to go ahead and annex the West Bank. So it's going to be very tough. It's a long way to go but it is a new step in this tragic conflict.
A long way to go, Mr. Toomey. A long way to go, as you say, and a highly symbolic statement. But let's just look at the practicalities, how achievable this is. Mr. Macron insists on some conditions: demilitarisation, recognition of Israel. Are those conditions that the current Palestinian leadership, you think, can really deliver?
It's hard for the Palestinians to deliver. I mean, are not willing to deliver, because the PLO, and that led to the PA, to the Palestinian Authority, that was actually emerged following the Oslo Accords 3 decades ago. But who did employ all these parameters of that? The negotiation process that was taking place, but where, of course, the other side, I mean, the Israelis, because we know that the Israelis, they don't recognize the Palestinians, period. So now for the Palestinians, sure, I mean, they are looking forward for this opportunity, and they have, again, they are before historic responsibility too. I mean, like happened to Yasser Arafat three decades ago. But now the Palestinians need to fix their house first, and then look for another leadership, because the corrupt current administration that, I mean, never had elections for more than 20 years now. So, and then we'll open up for all the Palestinians, the more than 14 Palestinian factions, to meet and break through and look for this opportunity. And by the way, I mean, there is not only Hamas and Al-Jihad and the other factions in Gaza. I mean, there are other factions who are also against the occupation and are also looking for this opportunity as a ray of hope to break through and to have actually to enhance at least their self-determination process that more now than 142 countries have recognized the Palestinian state since Algiers' declaration of 1988.
And we've heard, somewhat predictably, a very strong reaction from the United States. Also, obviously, a very strong reaction from Israel, who's described the move as a reward for terror. How do you respond to these concerns that this statement, this intent, in some way legitimizes violence, legitimizes Hamas?
Actually, I mean, the short answer is to end the occupation and launch a serious negotiation process with the Palestinians, and stop to blame the Palestinians that are not credible and are not united, and I mean, to some extent, stop patronizing them. As far as the Americans, or especially the President Donald Trump administration's statement, I mean, it is not surprised by any means, because he is surrounded by all the hawks and who are against the Palestinian state, and who are, again, showing strong support for Israel. So this is, again, is demystifying their narrative that has been going through for decades now on Western media.
And you mentioned there the loyalty, where is Hamas at this point in terms of its relationship with the Palestinian people? How do you assess the stability, the legitimacy of the leadership at this point in the crisis?
Hamas, it is in the center, and we all see, I mean, we cannot actually exclude Hamas from the Palestinian political spectrum, and it is a major force. And forget that when they held the Palestinians, the first time held fair and elections, so the Palestinians in Gaza and some even in the West Bank did vote massively for Hamas. But now it's not the question of Hamas. It's a matter now of, first of all, the international community to continue to pressure the Israelis, and these from those pressures. And by the way, this is what happened. The decision of President Macron that is calling to recognize a Palestinian state, it's kind of a diplomatic pressure that Israel was shocked to hear because they are not used to it. So for the Palestinians now these kind of moves coming from Western leaders is a ray of hope, and it gives to the Palestinian leaders to continue and look for at least enhance the peace process that they believe in. But what happened? Why the Palestinians stopped to believe in a two-state solution? Because the other side is trying to eradicate them, and they don't even recognize the people they call Palestinians. So this is, again, it's about the dogma. The dogma. So let's move to some pragmatism, and this is why I think President Macron is trying to go forward with other leaders in Western sphere. And of course, there is this possibility that President Macron is trying to have this session with the Saudis next week, and this is it's good. And we have to understand and to know that there are peace initiatives that launched by the Arabs, and this is the 2002 that was launched in Beirut summit, and peace for land. So this is what the Arabs were asking is just to go and recognize the Palestinian state under the 242 UN resolution that goes to to these two states will live side by side in peace and stability and prosperity, and eventually will bring stability for the entire region.
Now, Monsieur Macron is presenting this to some degree as a moral stance, but this is a president under a certain degree of domestic political pressure. All is not rosy at home. How much of this do you think is also about internal optics?
And you are right. President Macron is actually, to some analysts, they consider him as lame duck president since last year. Since he did make that decision to dissolve the French lower chamber, and he lost majority, and there is indeed a domestic political crisis that, to some point, is moving to a constitutional crisis. But since he is the head of foreign policy and he has this constitutional power, so he can do it. And of course, President Macron, he's looking for legacy, so he wants to mark his legacy as the president who dared to call for a Palestinian state, like General de Gaulle and François Mitterrand and Jacques Chirac. And by the way, there is actually, like French Parliament did vote in 2014 for the declaration to recognize a Palestinian state.
And finally, Mr. Toumi, Monsieur Macron has not called for the removal of Hamas before he recognises Palestine. The Palestinian Authority have praised President Macron's move. Do you think that this announcement could help reinvigorate Hamas's legitimacy and their role on the global stage?
It's hard to say, and depends on which side one is sitting. But again, Hamas, it's not the problem, because the problem is with the help of the Western states to push for such peaceful initiatives and demystify all the radicalism and the occupation. And I think Hamas is a part of the, again, Palestinian political spectrum, and this belongs to the Palestinian local politics, and then will be handled by the AP and by the PA, Palestinian Authority, and other groups. And there are, like for instance, the Palestinian Initiative for Peace that has a huge echo among the young elite in occupied Palestine. So the question now is, when we talk about Hamas, I'm sure we are talking about the resistance, and the resistance is not only Hamas. I mean, there are other groups, and they are not all Islamists like Hamas or Al-Jihad, but there are like other secular lefty groups who are actually fighting at this moment in Gaza, like the FPLP and FDLP and others.
But as you said, forgive me, Mr. Toomey, as you said, Hamas remain, as you said, still right at the centre.
Yes, it is, because it gets that legitimacy from the 2006 elections. And since, again, those elections, I mean, it was kind of a semi-coup against the victory of Hamas, and in which led to go and govern Gaza on one hand, and on the other hand, as a result of those elections, I mean, Gaza is under siege since 2006. So, and again, now it's not a matter of Hamas or other groups. It's all about the Palestinian people who are looking and like defending, again, in these days, with their stomach for self-determination that will lead to a Palestinian state.
Abdel Toomey, for us in Paris, thank you very much indeed for your analysis. Thanks very much for joining us. Okay, that is all for this edition of Newshour. From diplomatic rupture to regional recalibration, France's bold recognition of Palestine has redrawn the contours of Middle East politics and Europe's role in it. From all of us here at A News, thanks for being with us.